There we go. We're live. Hey, what's up, mediums? It's episode 38 of season 2 here at Keystroke Medium. Welcome to another episode of Live. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-host Scott Moon, and tonight, the author of the Circuit series, the sci-fi noir novel Titanfall, and one of the co-creators of the Sci-Fi Bridge project, Rhett Bruno, joins the show. He's been publishing and writing since 2014, and tonight he joins us to talk about his writing journey. Rhett, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. It's as always on Thursday nights, the live chat kicked off about 8 hours prior to showtime, and I believe Terry, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Terry Toombs was the #1 jumper on the chat. So congratulations! You win the Thursday night prize for first. Prize to be mentioned later, I guess, because I don't really have one set up.
As soon as we magic up a prize,
yes.
When I think the pride of winning.
When we think of a prize, you will be the first winner of the prize.
The prize is the reward.
That's right. Everybody else that's hanging out in the chat, welcome. Thank you. You guys are in for a treat later on in the show because we will be having a giveaway strictly for the members of the live chat. This giveaway is a one-time deal. It won't carry over into the rest of the broadcast. So to everybody who's listening or watching later, let that be a lesson to you. Come and join in the live chat. It's fun. It's rambunctious. There's shenanigans and mayhem, and you may or may not get free stuff. So
and according to the live chat, I don't know that if Terry needs a reward or whatever for being first, because apparently she has possession of a private island.
So well, maybe it's a boat to get off that island.
It could be. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be misinterpreting the chat because it's pretty rambunctious, like you said.
So like we always do on Thursday night, we like to talk a little bit about us before we get into the show. Scott, what have you been up to this week, buddy?
Well, probably the single coolest thing that I've done all week is actually something that you did for the show right before we got on here, and I came staggering down here from my little mini nap because I'm getting my day shift around with my new schedule and whatnot. And if you look at the screen there, it should have the fancy logo with my name and the Keystroke Medium logo on there, and Josh has his on his.
Indeed, we do.
That's probably maybe one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So
surprises.
Yeah. I wrote Nathan Heisted has Explorations 3. Are we okay with the title on that? Or were
Yeah.
I think it's War. Is that right?
War.
War. And of course, we're all about that. A lot of us like space or military sci-fi. And so I was getting behind. I had my concept for the story. I developed, I think, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday I wrote the whole thing, 5,200 words in one shot. Now, it needs to be edited, obviously, but so the coolest thing after the logo was I wrote a short story, and I like it, and it's called The Hand of Imperium.
You wrote the whole short story?
Whole story, one shot, bam.
Nicely
5,200 words in 30-minute sprints.
Nicely done.
So that was fun.
I did not write a short story this week.
Now I know Rhett's doing the cool giveaway, but got anything else that you want to share with our audience tonight, Rhett?
Yeah. So this week I actually also was working on a short story. My friend is putting together a collection of superhero and supervillain stories. Mm-hmm. So of course I wrote a story that's like the most grounded thing I've ever wrote. There's nothing super about it. He's kind of an ex-vigilante who's now crippled. And it's called The Roach Rises. So a little play on Batman there, which when people read it, they'll understand why. But yeah, that's what I've been writing on, and then doing some editing of other work. But that was the main thing that I too wrote and finished in like 2 days, which I usually don't do. So
there you go. Sometimes it works good that way with super stuff, especially.
That's Steve Bolyer's anthology.
Yeah, it is.
Which I might add, I may be the only person in history to pronounce his name correctly the first time. Bolyer, because everybody's like, how do you pronounce it? It's Blue.
I'm still I still spell it wrong, and I'm like co-writing stuff with him, and I don't even know how to say it.
I bet you Bowyer really isn't even actually the actual pronunciation. He just tells people that because it does not look like that at all, and then he laughs every time they say it.
Yeah.
Like I told him that's the way it sounds, and they believed me.
Exactly. Kind of like Tom Sawyer. Hey, come over and paint this fence. It'll be fun. Suckers. Anyway, what about you, Josh?
I had a pretty cool week.
Okay, you won some big time awards for like nearly falling off a building or something crazy.
Yeah, well, I did not nearly fall off a building. I was close, but no, I won the Chiefs of the Kansas Association of Chiefs of Police gave me a Silver Valor Award for basically pulling a suicidal guy off of the roof of a 27-story building with a partner of mine. And so we got to go to this dinner banquet last night and got this plaque. Of course, I didn't bring it down. But it was cool. It was fun. We got to spend the night in Overland Park and meet a couple of great officers, and it was a good time. And J.R. Hanley asked if I made the bomb squad or not. I don't know. I think I did very well, but we'll find that out. And then we could have a special like explosive episode of Keystroke Medium. I could blow up a bomb.
Good. Well, actually, you get the Scotch test Scotch test dummies over here, and some of their they do a bunch of videos that are pretty hilarious. But on Josh's life-saving award there, I watched the video from the shoulder-mounted camera on that, and I'm not afraid of heights, and I about fell over because it's a 27-story building, but it's one of those ones that's not flat on the top; it's slanted. So when you open the door, you're immediately kind of slant that goes down there, and there's not a lot of buildings that tall around here. So
yeah,
that was kind of a freaky deal. So
I just think it's crazy that we wrote some stories and he saved a guy's life this week.
I know.
Well, I didn't save his life this week. I did this. It was last year.
Oh.
And I'm trying to see if I can find the video. I can share it because I think it's pretty cool. Oh no, here we go. I'm going to share it in the live chat. Just
this will be a first. See, we haven't had a Keystroke Medium first for a while where we share a video. You're just putting in the link in the live chat. Yeah,
there you go.
Check that out.
If you care to watch it, feel free. It's a quick.
You can do it later. It's like a homework assignment.
Yes. Oh yeah, homework.
Yeah, homework assignment.
Read and do a video report. So. Well, Rhett, I listened to a couple of the other podcasts you've been on this week. And I'm really anxious to get into Titanborn. I'm right in the middle of a couple other books right now, and I hate jumping books to start something else. So I'm waiting until the end of the cycle of books I'm reading now to get into Titanborn, but it looks really good. And there's another book coming out of that series that's going to be releasing here pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it comes out on Monday. It's a prequel novella, actually, which works more directly with Titanborn. And, it's just something I think that will be a cool way to get people interested in the series. And it's a cool, short little story that introduces you to a few of the characters. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, for our audience members that may not know you or would like to know a little bit more about you and your books, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in writing?
Yeah, so actually, I'm an architect by day. So I kind of started writing while I was at college for architecture because you kind of get burnt out on that after a while. So I got back into it. I used to write before I went to college. I used to write just fantasy, and then I kind of decided to get more into science fiction. I started reading a lot of the Golden Age guys, Heinlein and Philip Dick, and all of them to really kind of learn about the history of it, and then started writing. So my first book was The Circuit Executor Rising, and I had written that whole trilogy in a row, and I worked to get it with a small press, which I then wasn't very big on their editing, so Diversion Books then bought the rights to it, and now they've published the entire trilogy. And then I was able to get an agent, and with him, we got my book Titanborn placed with Random House Hydra, which is their science fiction digital only imprint. And so far, 2 books in that series, Titanborn and For My Sashes, have come out. And that's really my major published work, and then some other short stories sprinkled in here and there.
That's very cool. I was just looking at the cover for the Circuit Executor Rising, which is the first book in the series, and the tag from the San Francisco Book Review is space opera fans that love Firefly and its ilk will appreciate. So immediately I'm interested. Can you give us
that was an interesting review, actually, because I got one from like Publishers Weekly and Kirkus, and they all really liked the book, and the one from San Francisco was like an average review because they felt it was sexist for some reason. And like, they were like, we really like this book, but we thought that this female character was treated sexist, which I thought was crazy since she's kind of like the most badass character in the book. She just happens to be getting taken advantage of without knowing it. And they
which happens.
Which happens. And they took it really hard. And of course they only read the first book, and in the second book she kind of breaks away from that and
we're talking about herself. She's taking advantage of physically or her situation or her
situation.
Yeah. That's what I assumed, but I thought Claire.
Yeah, and she's just happens to be on a lower tier than the people she's working with, so obviously they don't treat her right. And yeah, that was a pretty funny review, but no, that tag really worked. Firefly kind of works. The Expanse kind of works. A lot of my books have that sort of lived in universe feel.
Well, I like that. That's cool. You know, that's the thing about reviews. You know, you can't make everybody happy all the time.
No, definitely not.
Quote is.
And it's especially the traditional route, because I'm able to get a lot of blog reviews, and even the good reviews are only like 4 stars, 3 stars, because they're really critical. Like, unless you write the next Blade Runner, you're not going to get 5 stars. And so
right, and nobody's ever going to write the next Blade Runner. Now, do you have stuff on Goodreads? While we're talking about reviews, I'm curious because I know, at least in the old days before Amazon bought Goodreads, that reviews were always lower. At least I always experienced it. You get the same review, but they would rate you a lower star rating on Goodreads, it seemed like.
Well, that's the people that really pay attention. The rubrics are different. On Goodreads, 3 stars is a positive review. On Amazon, 3 stars doesn't fall into positive or the negative. It kind of just in the middle. So you can be down 1 star on Goodreads depending on if the reviewer really plays by the rules.
Yeah, I know it's a little tougher crowd over there.
Yeah, you get some people that just like, I got a guy who gave me a 1 star because I used the Imperial measurement system. Because I'm American, so I didn't really even think about it.
But you now got that star back because you made Josh snort something through his nose when you.
I'm not even lying. I actually edited it to change that when I switched over publisher, because I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Man. It was ridiculous.
So instead of using kilometers, you were using like feet and yards, and they didn't like that.
And he read 2 pages, saw that I was using miles, and gave it a 1 star and said it was Americentric.
Americentric, I like that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff you can run into on
Americentric sexist books.
Who's this guy that we have on the show right now? Who invited this guy?
But you could also meet some really great reviewers on Goodreads who are real critical. And now I have like a few that I've met that now like beta read stuff for me. And since they're reading like 200 books a year, they really know science fiction well.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, and you develop those relationships. That's the good part of social media, when you actually meet people that you connect with. That's the coolest thing, you know.
Yeah, that's where I like Goodreads reviews a little bit better than Amazon, because Amazon, like, they just post it. There's no way to talk to them or, you know, develop a relationship.
Yeah, and that. you don't dare, because you can get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
I had an Amazon review once. It was a 5-star review, and it said, product was as expected, delivered on time, would purchase again. I'm like, what is
exactly.
What is that? But obviously somebody just cut and paste like thousands of reviews and wanted to be a top 100 review or whatever.
Yeah.
So cool. So we were talking about your books and stuff, and then we got sidetracked because Josh shot something out his nose over there.
That's my bad. Your current series that you're working on now is Titanborn, and then the other novel in the series is from Ice to Ashes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Titanborn and where that series came from?
So the series original Titanborn, I wanted to write like a short story novella for writers of the future, just because it was a cool program, so I wanted to try something. So I started writing the story, and it came in at like 20,000 words, which is right at their top limit, and they're never going to accept anything that long. You know, they want shorter things so they can put more authors in, and so I got it back, and I was looking at it, I was like, I really like this character and this story, so I kind of broke it apart, created more of a background for the story, because the short version was just really focused. Things happened, and there really wasn't a background. So I developed this whole background with the main character, flesh out the story, added in his family, and really it reads more like it's like a redemption of a old 50-year-old bounty hunter who's at the end of his line. He's always just followed the rules and done whatever his employer asked him to. And now he winds up on this mission to take down terrorists from the moon Titan. They're an off-world colony, and there's a terrorist organization called the Children of Titan who bomb Earth. And he's trying to figure out where they are.
And that's Titanborn we're talking about?
Yeah, this is all Titanborn, and he's trying to figure out what's really going on. It sort of takes him back through his whole life, and he winds up reminiscing through his whole life about how he got where he is until the end when he finally comes face to face with these terrorists.
Yeah, I'm buying that right now. That's freaking awesome. You sold me. If I was like a book agent or editor, I'd be like, oh yeah, sold.
Yeah, so I actually sold it to my agent as the novella. He loved it. He was like, there's no way I could sell it at this word count. So that's when I was like, all right, let me take a few months and make this a novel. And then For My Stashes sort of came from there. There's one scene in Titanborn where the terrorists invade a gas harvester harvesting gas on Saturn. And he just sees this on TV, the main character in Titanborn. And that one scene sort of inspired me to tell the exact same time period from the perspective of someone brought into the terrorists. So it's 2 books in the same series that stand alone, and it's told by people on the total opposite sides of this conflict that they really didn't even know existed until everything comes to a head. And so that's where the series is at right now.
That's awesome.
I really like that. I like the idea of creating a series that spans several books, but it doesn't matter when you come into the series.
Yeah, that was my intention with it, because what happened with the circuit is 3 books, but they don't really make sense unless you read them all in a row.
Right.
And I'm not the kind of guy who could write like a 13-book series. I write slow. I kind of will tire of an idea if I do it too long. So I wanted to do something where each book could stand alone. So now the 3rd book in that series will bring these 2 main characters together, and we'll see where it takes them once their lives intersect.
Well, we'll have to dig into that, because I'm really curious about your writing process and whatnot. So
yeah,
I'm not sure if did we start this off with a intended topic that would then drift from and go off topic, or can we just talk about whatever we want?
We can talk about whatever you want.
That's awesome. Cool.
So you started off traditionally published with a small press, and you mentioned before we went live that you're kind of getting into an indie space for short stories and different things like that. How long? You said you've been writing and publishing since 2014, but how long did it take you to get into the publishing world? Were you writing novels and sending them off and getting rejection letters, or
so at like 16 I started writing this fantasy trilogy, which, I mean, if I look back now, it's crap, as anyone would know. And my parents read it and my teacher read it, like, oh, this is pretty good, you should try to publish it. So I was like 16 or 17, and my parents and kind of got swindled by a vanity press and put it out there and never really did anything. And I went to college and I was just like, all right, I'm done with this. And then I started writing like a sequel to that series, wrote the whole thing, and got it critiqued on like a critiquing website, and the woman just trashed it. I mean, to the point where it was like ridiculous, but like she also had a lot of good points. So I don't even have that manuscript anymore. It's probably on an old computer. So I just got rid of it. And that was when I started like trying to reinvent myself, because I knew it would be bad having this Vanity Press thing in the background. And that was when I transitioned to science fiction. And I probably spent like 6 months to a year looking for small presses for the circuit, because when you have nothing else and no agent, it's tough to find a good publisher. And
Right.
yeah, and so I found a bad one at first.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's a pitfall that we all have to be wary of.
Yeah.
So you obviously got this. I'm curious about this critique, and then you said you reinvented yourself. So what are some things you did? I mean, did you have kind of like a process or a goal in mind? Like, I want to do this, this, and this to master the craft or whatever.
I think I started reading more, and that was a problem. During high school, I kind of, you don't really get to read the things you want to read. And so I kind of stopped reading, because I was like, I like fantasy and science fiction, but I have to read this other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I stopped, and then I went to college, and I don't know if you guys know about architecture programs, but you don't really have time to read it all.
I imagine it's pretty rigorous, because there's probably math and stuff like that in there.
Yeah, it's drawing and math. It's insane.
And drafting
yeah. And then I think it was going abroad. When I was going for my semester abroad, I had nothing to do on the plane. So I read like 2 Star Wars novels, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then just while I was over there, because there's no TV or anything, and we were always on long bus rides, I just started reading a bunch of classic science fiction. I think that helped me learn a little bit more about crafting a story.
Right.
And pacing chapters and things like that.
I think that's interesting, because I thought that I read a ton when I was in high school. But if I go back and look at it, and I talk to people now who are big readers as well, I wasn't reading as much as I thought. I read I read like a half dozen books a year, and thought I just was a reading fiend.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I know people who are reading like 200 books a year on Goodreads or more. Or like one of my beta guys, like he literally posts a review every day, and there are people that post fake reviews every day. Not him. His reviews are completely real, completely thought out, and he does one every single day. That's how fast he reads.
Yeah,
I try to read that fast, and I can't, man, I just can't.
The trick is audiobooks. That was what he told me. He reads at night, and then every other time during the day, he just has it in his ear.
Yeah. Well, the Whisper Sync is a big help.
Yeah.
I
do Whisper Sync, and then I actually have like 5 audiobooks that I'm in the middle of listening to on my phone right now. I started like three separate ones on this trip. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get into audiobooks. But like I started Ken Lozato's Star Shroud, I started Red Rising, I started Skull Sworn, and then of course I'm listening to Storm of Swords too. But I love audiobooks, and I think on my Kindle I'll read like, I don't know, for like 5 or 10 minutes before I go to bed, and then I pass out.
Yeah, that's what I do. I actually have never even tried an audiobook though.
Oh, you've never have?
Well, you should let us recommend one, because you got to start with a good reader. If you start off with somebody bad, you might not like them, but you start with the right narrator. There can be really good. Lauren Moore in the chat just talks about speed reading. I bought a book called Rapid Reading a while back, and I worked at it real diligently. I was getting quicker, but I still am not as fast as I could be. I do 2 things when I read. I back skip, because I want to make sure I got it all right. Yep. And I daydream, which, hello, I'm a writer. So I'm reading along and the story gets really good, and then I'm off in La La Land. I come back and I've only read a page because I spent like 2 hours daydreaming about that scene or whatever.
Yeah, that happens to me too. And I've just started to look at it like when I'm reading, I watch TV shows for the story, and I read kind of for the research, because I'm too slow of a reader to be doing it to read for like a dozen stories a month. I'm just like learning how to write basically through reading.
Yep. The stories there's all types of stories in all types of mediums.
Yeah.
There's some of my favorite narrators. If you get anything by Luke Daniels, you'll probably enjoy it. It doesn't matter what he could read the dictionary, and I would listen to it. That and Michael Kramer. If Michael Kramer read me the Encyclopedia Galactica from the beginning to end, I would listen to Michael Kramer read that.
What's the guy who does some of John Ringo, David Weber, Steven Rudnicki or something like that.
Yeah, Steve Rudnicki, I think.
That guy's awesome too. So.
And then Roy Detroit reads the Song of Ice and Fire, and
Like Roy.
man, that's great stuff.
Simon Vance, Tom Lee, all these people were like fanboying over audiobook narrators. It's a little creepy. I mean, let's be honest.
And really, we should only be fanboying on Sanderson, because that's how we built this show.
The show
was
is
fanboying on, which I might add that I got this cool his latest short story.
Did he make a hardback of his short story?
It is a hardback. It is a hardback and signed and numbered and lettered. I didn't get the lettered copy because I didn't have that much money, but signed and numbered. Mine's 421 out of 1,000 copies.
But a Sanderson short story is 75,000 words long.
Oh, it's still, I mean, it's still pretty thick.
Yeah, that's true. I think I saw that like pop up on my Facebook feed, and I clicked it. I was like, "This isn't a short story," just so everyone knows.
Yeah, but it's a super good book. It's very good, and it ended. I kept reading it, going, "Oh, it'd be so cool if it ended like that. Oh God, it'd be so cool if it did." And then it did, and I was like, "Yes." So let's get back to your books, and specifically the Circuit, because it mentions Firefly, and I freaking love Firefly. Is this series done that you've been writing it, or
so this trilogy in the series is completely done. I kind of tried to leave the end open just in case I wanted to go back to it, but I think it wraps up all the threads pretty nicely. And unlike Titanborn, it's really just reads like one continuous story. When you're in the traditional world, you can't publish a book that's 1,000 pages long if you're a no name.
Right.
And so I split it into a trilogy that works. So each book kind of tells its own partial story, but it's one long continuous arc. And yeah, I think it's done. And I love when people read the whole thing, because the ending is pretty shocking, in my opinion. Because even I shocked myself with it. I sort of had an ending plan, and I got near the end and was like, I can't do this, and totally changed it right on the spot. So,
well, I just one-clicked it, so it'll be next after I finish. And it doesn't. Do you have an Audible edition? Doesn't look like it. After I finish David Estes' Fate Marked, then the Circuit Executor Rising will be next on my Kindle for 5 minutes a night until I pass out. So, let's see here. The Titanborn book, you have 2 books out now, and a short novella that you're releasing.
Yeah.
Which that may be a good time to bring up for the live viewers. The giveaway today is a free copy of that novella. So if you're watching live right now, and in the live chat, I've just posted a link. If you follow that link, it will take you to a book funnel where you can find his novella, The Collector, free, and get it early. And that is strictly for the live viewers. It will not show up in the video description or in the show notes. And that's just kind of a thank you for everybody that comes out and hangs out with us live. Thanks, Rhett, for the giveaway. That's phenomenal. That's awesome.
Yeah,
thanks for
of course. It seemed like the right thing to do. It's coming out soon, and it's short, so I think people will be able to get through it quick.
And this is a prequel, or how does it fit with the universe?
So it takes place 10 years before Titanborn, which that's the same period as for my Sagittarius. So it's really like a decade before. The main character's not as old yet, but he's still kind of grumpy. And it has more of a Blade Runner-y feel, because he's really in his prime of being a bounty hunter. And there's a little twist with androids, which you'll see. So I think it's perfect for the time for right now. And I'm excited because it's actually the first thing longer than a short story that I'm going to be self-publishing.
Very cool.
So my publisher actually is letting me self-publish this, because they wouldn't do something that short, but they let me do my own cover and sort of have fun with this story. And they signed off on it fitting into the universe. So it's my first time testing what self-publishing could be like.
It's actually very forward thinking of them to do, because you could very easily have a publisher that says, no, you're not going to be making any money off of that.
It took a little bit of time for me to convince them to actually do it.
But when you think about it, though, that's free marketing for the other books that they have.
Which was my argument, and I, spoke with a bunch of authors who are traditionally published who did a similar thing. I think it was Jay Allen I talked to who did a similar thing with a series that wasn't selling that well, and he said it helped the series take off, and he had to convince his publisher, and I sort of gave his testimony to show mine, like, oh, this could be a great way to get new readers in at a cheap price, and I'll link it to all the other books. I don't care I'll give you guys 10% if you want. I don't really care. I just want to drive people to the main books.
Right.
So, and, I was listening to, I think it was Sean Cohen, the Story Grid people. They talked in one of their podcasts. I thought they were talking about how working with the publisher, if you have a contract, you do have limitations on what you can do for marketing.
Yes.
You can't just like, well, I'm going to go above and beyond and do all this crazy stuff because it's spelled out in there. So you have, it looks like quite a bit of experience. Is there any tips for people as far as doing the hybrid thing and what you should look out for, or what you can, or some best practices?
I mean, mostly what you can't do is affect pricing changes at all, which can be a big harm as far as actually selling. But you can reach out to reviewers, which I know a lot of traditional authors who probably haven't gotten many reviews or anything because they're not doing anything themselves. And unless you're with one of the top imprints like a Del Rey or an Orbit, like no one's reaching out for reviews from everyday bloggers for you. Like they'll reach out to Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, and that's about it, just the big ones. But, you're able to reach out to as many people as you want. You could do giveaways as long as you're not giving away 1,000 books and stuff. Like you could do pretty much anything, and you could create your mailing list to connect with readers. The only thing you can't do is run a 99-cent sale whenever you want, or a launch special, or things like that to really you hear indie authors talking about really affecting the algorithms on these retailer sites. Can't really do that stuff, but you can do everything else, and then hope your publisher has your back enough to, put those reviews and everything else out there.
Yeah.
Is this something that you're just going to try for this one novella and see how it goes? Or I could see this being kind of a new form where if you're traditionally published, doing these shorter works, every 6 months or so, just to push more traffic back to the traditionally published. Do you see yourself doing more of these short works, or was this just kind of like, I want to write the story and be done with it type thing?
Yeah, I would definitely do. I actually wrote a version of this story like 1.5 years ago, and then I was like, I have no idea what to do with this, because at that time Titanborn wasn't even out, and they would never have let me do it. And then I sort of saw the success you could have by doing these prequel magnet novellas and expanded on the story, really like turned it into a real story that connects to the books, and I think it turned out well. And I have another short story that's sort of a prequel short story, but it's short, so that's a tougher sell. It's tougher to put that up and charge money for it and really, do a lot of marketing for it. But I would definitely do it again. And I mean, as far as indie goes, I'm even considering and in talks with my publisher, but book 3 actually might be self-published by me myself, so I can sort of do my own thing with it and take off of the foundation that they've already started.
Oh, wow. That'd be interesting to do. Yeah.
Be interesting. It might be a good follow-up show, depending on how that goes.
Yeah, which it could be tough marketing a sequel, which is my main mission is to try to make it so that could stand completely alone.
Right.
With these other books that are awesomely edited by Random House and stuff, and get these great reviews, and then, kind of be able to spin off the series on my own and see how that goes. Just sort of experiment with that.
I've always been curious to see if, like, something that you're talking about, like trying to write a series of books that aren't specifically connected in a row, kind of like what Tom Clancy did with most of his books. If you read all of Tom Clancy's books, you can read them in chronological order, or you can just read them in any order you want, and it really doesn't affect the book that you're reading. I mean, you get some, like, if you read Hunt for Red October was his first book, but actually I think was it Cardinal of Kremlin or Red Rising. I can't remember which, but actually in the timeline came before Hunt for Red October, but he published it later. So it really doesn't matter. And then like you read like one of his new one, like Clear Present Danger or Debt of Honor, like those books are connected, but you don't have to read them in order. So but I haven't seen anybody else do that.
I think it's a cool strategy, and I know my agent and publisher were excited about it because they don't really see anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
The first two books definitely stand alone, but if you read them both, there's like, you know, breadcrumbs in each, and I think when you read them both, like some things just click in as far as the setting goes. And so that's my main mission with the third one, is to try to get it to feel like that, because now I'm taking two characters who starred in their own book and putting them both into one, and trying to avoid having to info dump what happened in the other two books into the beginning, so that it makes sense for people reading who haven't maybe read the other one and are getting into the series at book 3. So I'm thinking about sort of kind of marketing those first two books almost as origin stories for each character.
Oh,
and then the book after are modern times or something like that, you know, like the way a movie series might do it.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm really interested to see how that kind of progresses.
I think it would be the gold standard to have books that are all completely standalone and satisfying, but also cliffhangers. I mean, if you can actually pull it off, everybody always says that everybody will say things like that, but actually having to pull it off is probably a challenge, I imagine. I know the one example that I thought along those lines in the thriller field, Nick Stevenson, he wrote a series of books, and they're all standalone with the same characters, but he found out that his third book was his best-selling book, and he moved it basically to the front. That's the one he marketed as the beginning of his.
Oh, okay.
Like that. And it worked because you could read them in any order, just like Josh was saying about Tom Clancy. So.
Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
then C. Stephen Manley was talking about that works best when there's not an overarching series type a story arch between the books. So being standalone, that's not something I'm good at. And I think that maybe there's been a lot of talk in the writer's world about writing the whole series out before you publish any of them.
Right.
And I think if you did that, it might be a good way to maybe tie all those up and link them together.
I'd never publish anything if I did that.
That's why I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I think when you're talking about the overarching story arcs and stuff between the books, like Chuck's saying, you see that, predominantly in series where you see the character grow and change, and there's noticeable change through the series. But when you read Tom Clancy's stuff, that isn't in the forefront of his series. It's the plot of the books. They're very plot driven books, but there's character in them, but they're mostly plot driven books. So you don't.
So I think that's where my problem will come, because mine are more character study, character driven stories.
Yeah.
So you're going to have characters starting in book 3 that have been through this whole arc, and now they're kind of going through another arc and changing. So it's about selling that as something that can actually work and be readable on its own.
Right.
Well, and Tom Clancy almost had technology as a character, kind of, because each book had kind of something. It was kind of like almost like a little fictionalized nonfiction. You could really read it in the early days, especially. You're like, I'm reading fiction, but I'm learning something. A lot of people like that, and I see where that's going, but it's still fiction.
So have you started writing the third book yet?
So the third book first draft is actually done right now. I'm just wondering if I want to make it kind of a super book and wrap the story up in one longer book, or split it into 2. So that's where I'm at right now, because I think I could probably get away with doing either if I'm going to do it on my own. But
was that a big I don't want to say fight, but was it when you went to the publisher and you said, hey, can I do this on my own? What was their reaction to that?
It wasn't really anything like that. I signed a deal, so it was book by book.
Oh, okay.
So I'm kind of, after For My Stashes, I was allowed to really do whatever I want with it. As long as I don't write the same exact book and sell the same exact book, it's not really competing. I have control over the series.
That's very good.
I have to apologize for just drilling into your traditional publishing side of things, because we're like voyeuristic a little bit on that, trying to see into the hidden veil of.
Well, but I think that a lot of our guests are indie, but I think as we grow as our audience, we're going to see a lot more traditionally published people as guests, and people that are interested in still going traditional publishing, because they do offer a lot. Like you're saying, just with the reviews, Kirkus Reviews and Publishers Weekly and all that, it's easier to get as a traditionally published author.
It would be nice if it became more of a partnership, because I think both types of writing and publishing have a lot to offer each other. Kind of like your heavy cavalry and your light cavalry. One's more flexible and fast, and one's got the power to push through. And
well, I think, like someone just said in the chat, that hybrid really is a nice way to go now. And I see it. We'll probably talk about Sci-Fi Bridge later, but I kind of started this platform with a bunch of authors and talked to a bunch and learned a lot about traditional publishing and independent publishing, both of those. So that was sort of the impetus for me saying, like, well, maybe I could try this on my own. And I might not get as many great critical reviews, but can maybe sell more books or get it in front of more readers on my own. Because I kind of have things I've learned about digital marketing that the traditional publishers really aren't doing yet, unless you're with a big imprint where they have the money to advertise your book at $9.99 for a Kindle book and still have you selling tens of thousands of books, which so unless you're at that level, you kind of wind up in this middle ground as a traditionally published author, where you could write the best book in the world, but it isn't getting seen by as many people because they have you at a normal full price.
It's a lot of money for a Kindle book. It's a little bit more. I mean, I buy lots of $9.99 Kindle books and stuff, but the one clicking, it takes me 2 looks, if that makes any sense. As you bring up the Sci-Fi Bridge anthology, the whole time right before you were getting ready to talk about that, I'm sitting there looking at the book cover for At the Helm, which is At the Helm, Volume 1 of a Sci-Fi Bridge anthology. There's a bunch of awesome writers in that. How did you go about finding people to be in the book, or is there a story behind that you can share with us?
So some people might have heard about it. I know Jason Anspaugh was on here, and he's one of the other founders. It's me, him, and Chris Porto. And they're both independent authors, and I was traditional, and we kind of had this idea to try to bring together traditional and independent science fiction writers and just throw that out the window and just bring together great science fiction writers and try to get books in front of readers that readers might not know about or have seen before by mixing these audiences. Because it's very different audiences, I've noticed, because a lot of our authors don't even have mailing lists, but they're still selling a ton of books. Mm-hmm. And so if they're able to connect with those people, it's a totally different audience than what an indie author with a huge mailing list and a huge fan base that he's connected with already has. So it was kind of mixing these fan bases, and it started off small just as an idea, and we started reaching out to a bunch of great science fiction authors, seeing who might be interested in like taking part in our giveaways and stuff. So we kind of would work with a bunch of different people to try to give readers as much as we can. And people sort of had a great response to it. And all of a sudden, in like a week, I was in charge of running a giveaway for like 20 best-selling authors who have sold hundreds of thousands more books than I have. And like emailing with all these people who probably I wouldn't have talked to otherwise. And all of a sudden knew other authors. Because I mean, I never really had a big network of authors I knew as a traditional author, because you kind of are with your publisher. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, well, let's see what we could do. If we could do an anthology and sort of have a few original stories and then some reprints that people think are their best work. And the anthology almost be like a sampler of authors that we're going to work with, where readers could come and find new science fiction authors that they might not have known it before. So we're working on our 3rd volume now. The 2nd one comes out actually next week as well, which it just happened to work out that way. And we're filling up the 3rd anthology right now with some stories to, we're not trying to make money off of it. So we put it out for a good price and just see as try to get in front of as many readers as possible.
It's like an author party, with all those people on there that maybe wouldn't necessarily have been associated.
Yeah, it's
together.
I mean, there's some people that their stories were in like analog, and then other people self-publish their stories and they're related to their series and stuff. And they're a lot of authors that didn't know each other, and I didn't know any of them. It's not like we're all friends, so it's a real eclectic group, and that's what we were aiming for.
Yeah. It's a real, and for people that aren't really total geeks about the marketing, is that what it says is, you mentioned before that those audiences, traditional sci-fi and indie sci-fi, are a little bit separate. So what it means is there's a lot bigger audience than a lot of people have assumed, because a lot of people thought it was one audience.
I think there's a lot of you have your Insta freebie audience who a lot of them, if you are advertising an Insta freebie, you could get great reviewers on there, but it's tough to bring people onto your mailing list that buy books even at 99 cents because there's so much free stuff available. And then of course you have people that enjoy indie science fiction or just are getting deals or wait until it's cheap. You have your BookBub fans who there's thousands of people buying on every one of those promos. And I've done 2 of them and gotten maybe 2 reviews off of them. So there's people just collecting 99-cent books.
Right.
And then you have these people with traditional authors that are buying Kindle books for like $9.99 to $15 because we have a Star Wars author involved and those books go up for $15. And so, I mean, you have to imagine that's a bunch of different people paying totally different amounts to still read science fiction. And so we try to find deals so we could send these people good price deals for all these different types of science fiction without really saying where the people are published.
And I saw a post the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that the last email push you did beat Book Barbarian or somebody else that was a large book email deal distributor. I can't remember which one it was.
So based on the numbers that I've seen from trying all of them, our spotlights have beat everyone but BookBub. Which
wow,
BookBub's not even close. You're going to get 3,000 sales through BookBub if you run a 99-cent sale.
Yeah.
The thing we're able to do is, sometimes I'm in contact with these authors, and I'll tell them they'll say I have a new release and it's the 7th book in a series or something. I'm like, we can't really advertise that because none of these people have probably read books 1 through 6. So how about you put the entire series at 99 cents each for 1 or 2 days. So just for us, I'll call it an exclusive and it'll sound great. And the first one we did, which was just our first month in existence, this author launched up to the 20th author in all of science fiction. 20th ranked author. He sold, just through us, sold over 500 books of his whole series, and also timed a lot of other promos. So he
probably got his also bots on Amazon are probably all populated with all the different sci-fi stuff. And
he's like messaged me a million times thanking me, saying like this idea changed my career. And I was like, honestly, I thought people would just like buy one of them. And people just went in, they bought the whole series, and I checked the next morning. I was like, holy crap.
But if you like the author, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
If you could get a whole series for $5, why not?
Can we say who that author is, or do you want to hold
that? No, it was Christian Callias.
Yeah.
Who's now he just released another trilogy that's doing really well. But it was a really cool promo. It kind of gave us the idea that every once in a while we could do something that no other promo site is doing, and that's put a whole series up for a whole series sale. And really,
like, this is just crazy enough to work.
Lauren Moore asks how many readers are on the list and how many authors, or can you share?
I can't share our number.
I asked that before and I got
shut down.
It's not just me in charge. It's a nice number, but the activity of the subscribers is really what works. And I think that's because we kind of have hit this niche where we bring in the most active people on everyone's subscriber list that we work with. And there's no real set number of authors. We're constantly reaching out with people to take part in our giveaways and stuff. So the list of authors we work with has just been constantly growing since we started.
I think it's really important is how engaged you are with your list. I know people that have 30, 40,000 people lists on some of them. And I had a pen name book and I had somebody send it to their 32,000 person list. And, it may obviously the fault could be with the book that I wrote, but I didn't get any sales from that at all.
No, and
30,000
you'll see
person
that.
list.
Look at all these different platforms. I won't name any specifically, but they'll say, oh, we have 90,000 science fiction readers and you pay like $20 to go on it and you sell like 5 books through it. And it's not your book's fault. They're just not active subscribers. And that's really the only thing that matters. And it's a problem on that every author has. It's like, how do you build your list? And if you build your list through certain platforms, like an Insta freebie, you'll get people that love to read, but aren't spending that much money. And that's a good way to get your reviewers.
Right.
And I think there's some ways to try and reach out and engage people off your Insta freebie.
Yeah, for sure.
I think people that are able to make that connection are smarter than I am, because I have not really been able to master that technique. But I think you're right. Chris Fox has talked recently about data science and kind of the purity of your list, and the also bots and things like. I apologize for my sump pump. It's rainy season here in Kansas. But so it is. We just talked to him recently, and he's like, you kind of want people that are into your books to buy your books, and not just a random assortment, because it helps Amazon know who to push them to.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the promos that you're just getting people that are collecting. There are people that just collect 99-cent books. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping that we're not dealing with those people. And judging by the amount of like just emails we get, anytime we mess up something, like people saying like, you need to fix this link or something. So people are paying attention and we answer. So we're kind of providing a service that no one else is right now, because we're able to answer them and, fix things and help them out really quick.
We have a Kieran Archer is viewing from Germany. Says it's very early there. So, I'm sorry.
Well, what's the difference? I think the time difference from England is 5 hours now, and what is it? 2 more? It's 7 for Germany. So what is it?
Yeah, so it's like what is it,
5 o'clock in the morning there?
That's some dedication there, and that is awesome. So we should have an award for that too. Just kind of like our first in the chat award. You also get one for being in Germany and being up really early. So 5 hours from England, Jerry Hanley says.
The cool things that I like about your giveaways.
Sorry.
It's 5:54. So the cool thing I like about the giveaway that you guys do is that not only do you do ebook giveaways, but you also do hardback giveaways. Was that and you do it for a group of authors, not just 1 or 2, but you have like what, 15 or 10 to 15 authors in one group.
We try to get like 20 authors in any giveaway, and it's up to them. So they have to provide at least one ebook, obviously, because they have to give something away.
Yeah.
And so there'll be a prize, and instead of like a lot of them, we'll have one winner. We get 5 people will win a package of all the ebooks in. So it's usually like 20 to 30 ebooks, and then as many signed paperbacks as we could get. And so the grand prize person who gets that is US only, and it's usually only authors in the US, because, shipping can be a ton and we don't have a budget for that right now. But, people will get like 20 signed books, which is something that I think is really cool. And that's on top of other people also getting ebooks. And then everyone will get a few free books, which a lot of times it's an anthology, so you could test out a bunch of authors just for signing up for one of the giveaways. So we're trying to make it appeal to as many different types of readers as we can.
That's cool. We could probably talk about the Sci-Fi Bridge all day long. I did want to talk to you about your writing process a little bit. Okay. We're kind of cruising. Well, we got time. But so you had mentioned I'll let you talk about it. What's your writing process?
So I hear a lot of the authors come on here and they're able to like churn out books every 2 months, and I like shake my head because I can't do that. I wish I could. So I kind of don't really outline. I'll have a notepad file on my phone and just sloppy notes and thoughts on the story, and I know where it's going to begin. I know where it's going to end. I kind of chart down how the characters act, and that's about it. And then I start writing, and a book could take me anywhere from like 3 months to write to a year. I kind of actually am a spurt writer. So if I'm feeling it, like all of a sudden 20 words will be down in a week, and I'm like, whoa, how did I do that? And if I'm not, I'll slog through like 1,000 words a week. So it can be very different. And a lot of the newest manuscript I wrote, I actually wrote in like 2 months and looked up. I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that, because I just really got into the story and really had an idea. But then Titanborn, by the time it went from its phase from being a short story to a finished novel, it probably took like a year.
So you mentioned how characters act. You make some notes about how they act. So can you give us an example of what and how you make those decisions, or how it changes throughout the process?
I just, try to chart what they're like, just so I know as I'm writing, like, would this character really say this? Or are they more sarcastic? Are they like the Captain America type or stuff? Like, just basic outlining like that, what they look like. And just so as I'm writing, I could check back on that and make sure I didn't mischaracterize them somewhere in a minor way, that because I am a perfectionist like that, and I'll just look 1,000 times to make sure the character doesn't come off differently in one scene than he did in any other scene.
And you mentioned that sometimes you don't write very often in a week. Do you have a set time where you like to sit down and write? Or I mean, you mentioned on your phone taking notes, but like I don't have a set time. So whenever I get the 5 minutes to sit in front of the computer, I try to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't have a set time. I do it at night mostly because I have my day job that I go to, and architecture can be a lot of work. So often my brain's just too tired to do anything more than take down some notes on what the story will be. So I probably should have a set time, but I've always felt that if I'm not in the mood to write and I write 1,000 words, they're going to suck. So I'm going to have to rewrite them anyway. So I kind of wait until I'm really in the flow of writing, and that's when I'll get most of my work done.
It's I know that a lot of people watching the show, I think most of our viewers are not full-time writers or authors, and I think a lot of people fight for that time that you get in front of the computer to write, myself included. I think that, if you can dedicate half an hour at least a day to your writing, I think that you'd make really good
Use the
progress
Mondo
whatever
method.
you're doing.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that, a half hour a day at least. And even if it's not writing, maybe I'll look back and edit something that I've already written,
Right.
something like that, just so I'm staying active and making sure that I keep things moving along.
I definitely have the same feeling where you get tired, you're running out of brain glycogen or whatever it takes to make your creative process run. But sometimes I'll think it's kind of like working out, sometimes you go and you don't feel like going to the gym, but if you actually go, by the time you're done, you like usually wind up having one of the best ones. So sometimes if I can just get started.
Yeah.
But the most fascinating one that I've come across lately has been Armand Rosamilia, if I'm saying his name right. He has the Mondo method. And for people who didn't watch that show, he writes for the first 15 minutes of the hour. Of course, he's full time, and then he does 45 minutes of whatever. Like, and he tries to write, I think it was 1,096 words a day, because that's 400,000 words a year or something. I'm like, well, that's a.
I mean, yeah, if I was full time, I guess that wouldn't be too bad to do.
Yeah. You hang out and do that all day long. But yeah, I'd love to go full time. I think. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. We'll just move on.
I did have a quick question, going back to Sci-Fi Bridge. I can't remember who asked it, and I'm trying to scroll through. There it is. Guy Anthony DeMarco asks, is Sci-Fi Bridge better at motivating people to leave reviews other than like going to book, like you mentioned,
so that's
BookBub?
tough to know, because we've only really been doing promos for 2 months. And if it's a pretty famous author already, they have a lot of reviews, so I'm not sure if new ones come up. So it's tough to track. I'm going to, start kind of trying to pay attention to that more. But a lot of people just don't leave reviews. And they say for every 100 buys you get on a book, you'll get one review, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a ton of readers out there who just aren't active. And I mean, honestly, if I wasn't a writer and I was just reading for fun, I probably wouldn't be either. So I get it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Even knowing how vital reviews are, I've probably read 15 books this year that I haven't left reviews on. That I feel bad about that.
Yeah. As an author, you're often told to avoid that a little bit. So we could cut you some slack.
Oh, thanks.
I'm not supposed to. My publisher, i.e. myself, says don't do that.
Yeah.
The two other questions I had for Sci-Fi Bridge are A, where, if you're a reader looking for these deals, where would they go to find these deals at? And B, if you're an author looking to try to get into the program, where would they go?
So both you could go to scifibridge.com. As a reader, you just subscribe to our newsletter and you'll start getting these deals, and we'll remind you about the giveaways when they're on, and so you have access to getting those free books and all that sort of stuff. For an author, our email is on the website. Just email us, like kind of show us everything you have. We're at the point where we're kind of pretty selective about curating who we're working with right now, because we got so busy so fast, and it's 3 of us running this whole thing, and we all have day jobs and our authors. So we're kind of trying to expand more slowly now, but anyone can reach out to us at any time, and we're happy to explain the situation or keep their names on file, stuff like that.
And it's you, Jason Onspach, and Chris Porto.
Yep.
We need to get Chris on the show, because then we could have the trifecta of Sci-Fi Bridge on Keystroke Media. We only have 2 for now.
We'll do a group show one day.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do. It'd be like a party.
Well, we've actually run over the hour as I'm looking at the clock now, and this time has kind of flown by, and it's been a fantastic show, and I've had a lot of fun listening to you. For the audience, would you tell them a little that where they can go to find more about you and your books?
So the best place to go, where you'll find all the links and everything, is just to my website, which is rhettbruno.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter there, where I kind of share, and I'm often pretty personal in them and explaining what's going on with my publishers and stuff, which some people find interesting. And or you could just follow me on my Amazon author page or any of those other pages. But my website is the best place to get to know me, and I leave my email there. Readers sometimes contact me. I got my favorite reader email ever yesterday, actually, where she emailed a person who read a book, and she didn't even say which one, which I thought was funny. So I have no idea what she read, but she said, like, thank you for making your books difficult to read, which at first sounded really negative, but she just meant that they were a little more complex, I guess, than the science fiction she's been reading, and just as far as the story, because they're pretty character focused. And so I just thought it was a funny email, and I have no idea what she read or even what she was talking about. But
that's awesome, though, because that's a difficult line. You want to respect the reader, but you don't want to be so obtuse. So no, that's actually a very big compliment. Somebody really put some time into it.
Nice.
I'm really curious about where the Sci-Fi Bridge stuff goes, and so we'd like to stay in touch and see kind of how it develops and over the next few months and years and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. It's been growing pretty fast. We hope it kind of sustains that growth and effectiveness as we go forward.
And what you didn't know, and what our authors didn't know, or our viewers didn't know, is that when Sci-Fi Bridge becomes the new BookBub, then all the live participants get free Sci-Fi Bridge advertising for the life of the Sci-Fi Bridge company.
And then I sell the website for millions of dollars.
$millions.
That's awesome. Well, Rhett, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate your
thank you guys for having me. It's been
time, and it's been a great conversation.
Guys, there's one thing.
Yeah,
we didn't read our sponsor ad.
That you're right, we did not. How am I keep forgetting that?
because we get to listening to Rhett, and then everything goes horribly haywire.
That is right. Well, and I actually think JR said something about it and I missed it. But anyway, this episode of Thursday Night Live is brought to you by BZ Hercules Editing Services. There you go, JR, right there with the BZ Hercules reference. Thank you so much, sir. Beth over at BZ Hercules has partnered with us to give our viewers and listeners a 15% discount on editing, proofing, and triangulation services. You can go to keystroke.medium.com/BZHercules and get that 15% discount. And also we are on Stitcher Radio now. So if you are listening to Stitcher Radio, you can check out our feed there. So that's it for Thursday night, folks. Everybody that was hanging out with us in the live chat and from Germany, good morning, good evening, good night. It has been a blast hanging out with you guys. We have Ken Lazito on live. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He'll be on live Monday, and then Charles Akeke will be on Thursday Night Live next week. Everybody that hung out with us, thank you so much. Let us know what you thought about the show in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. For Scott Moon, I'm Josh Hayes. We have been live with Rhett Bruno here on Thursday night. Be sure you come back next week and join us as we talk about reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys have a great night.